Well, hello and good evening. Welcome to another live edition of Love Cafe TV. Your host, Scott Cluthe. I have an outstanding show tonight, and actually this reaches back to the roots of my spiritual family, you might say. Back in the 80s, even the 70s, well, the 90s too, I attended Unity Church in Houston, known as Unity Church of Christianity here, the Golden Pyramid. Well, now I have two Golden Pyramids. And there I discovered and started to work with and read A Course in Miracles. Why is that important? That's the foundation, if you will, the principle, the foundation of the work of my incredible guest this evening. And my guest is Corrine Zupko. Her new book is from New World Library. And if you don't know anything about A Course in Miracles, this is a great place to understand the power of the spiritual journey and spiritual study, because it has inspired her in her life to write From Anxiety to Love, a radical new approach for letting go of fear and finding lasting peace. And you know how tough that can be sometimes to find that old lasting peace, isn't it? But Corrine Zupko is the author of From Anxiety to Love. As a licensed counselor and a keynote speaker, she's helped thousands of people throughout her one-on-one counseling, weekly meditation classes for corporations, and the largest virtual conference of A Course in Miracles in the world, and through the organization Miracle Share International, and which she co-founded. She lives in New Jersey. That's great. That's right across the river from Pennsylvania, where I came to Houston back in 1970. And you can visit her online at FromAnxietyToLove.com. And I couldn't think of a better title than that. And without further ado, we say hello and good evening to our guest tonight, live in the Love Cafe TV. It's Corrine Zupko. And I said Connie even in the introduction, didn't I, Corrine? And that's the little game I've been playing with you today, right? So,
little game, it's okay.
Forgiveness, is the first step to self-awareness. And so just thank you for that. So namaste and thank you.
So happy to be here. So happy to be here.
Thank you. And there's a reason why I told you before my show was called Positively Incorrect. I could read all the books and comprehend the concepts. I just couldn't get the names right. And the people at New World Library, you're a fantastic publisher. They know that brand very well from Scott Cluthe. Corrine, A Course in Miracles is powerful work, but anxiety can seem more powerful when you're in the throes of it. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know what you mean. I know what you mean big time. Anxiety is a wonderful catalyst for spiritual growth because it's so painful. It is so uncomfortable. And it's one of those feelings that just, you want it to go away. You want it to be anything, anywhere else other than in your head and in your body. And for me, the anxiety was overwhelming, and it was overwhelming for years, for a long, 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 long time. And I chose eventually to allow the anxiety to become my teacher. What could I learn from it? What could I gain from having this condition that I didn't want, but was very present to me? And it was through, number one, really accepting that right now, I had anxiety, having to really accept that was where I was at, and therefore then take steps to do something about it, to find another way. So anxiety is a wonderful catalyst for spiritual growth because it hurts.
Anxiety is fear. And A Course in Miracles, and we were talking about this as well, and you mentioned it early on in the book, that fear and love truly can't exist in the same place, the same space, the same moment, really in us as a moment of experience in the now. Fear or love. And so a lot of your work is to for people to start to generate the place of love within themselves and to connect to that greater love of which we all swim in that ocean when we are not thinking of ourselves as in a separate fishbowl.
Yes. I love how you said that. It's so true. Love and fear, they're mutually exclusive states. And we can get caught in thinking that I have to work on my fears. I have to overcome each one of these fears. And yet what A Course in Miracles is teaching us is that love is already there. It's already in us. It's already who we are. And we've just put blocks on top of our the blocks that we have put are blocks of fear that block our awareness that love is there. So this process of healing really just becomes about remembering love and letting those layers of fear fall away, instead of feeling like we have to, master our fears and push through them and get over them. It's really a process of remembering love. It's really a process of waking up to the love that exists in all of us.
Such true words, and the thing about great truths and what I call so true, it's trite, is that it's so true. It's so real, and don't you find, Corinne, that these powerful ideas like love and fear can't exist at the same time, that these kinds of pieces, they're actually anchors and rocks for us. For me, for Scott, when he's whacked out on his anxiety trips, which I have quite a journey, world journey on this, so I can actually show people where their anxiety is, because I've probably been there. To fall back on these fundamental truths, in Christianity, Jesus is the rock. Well, I say that Jesus represents the consciousness that is the rock, and that consciousness is a rock to fall back on. And a lot of times it's by simplifying life. And those statements we were just talking about are powerful and simple. They're like, there's a lot of potency in it, isn't there?
There really is. And I love how you said that. It is such, simplicity is everything. Truth is simple. Love is simple. This is all very, very simple. We make it complex when we get caught in thinking of how it should be and what it should look like, and all the, as Albert Ellis says, we should on ourselves all the time. We make it complex, whereas it's truth is simple. And so stepping into that simplicity is what this is all about. So I love how you said that.
Thank you. By the way, dear listeners, lovers of the Love Cafe, I love you all. If you're not a member, join the Love Cafe group. Lots of great shows like Corrine and many others. We have some video programs there. We're just starting the series now, about our 5th week now. And every Monday night, just about. Love to have you join us in the Love Cafe. And you can put questions and comments on the line there in real time while Corrine has joined me this evening. Now, one interesting thing is your mom introduced you to Course in Miracles, and that's not unusual. But also your mom had, as we all do, had her own anxiety. Is there some history there? Because I know you mentioned that early on a weekend where she had to go away and get a little chill down. We all do sometimes, some way.
Well, that was actually a medical issue that she had, where she had to disappear for a week into a hospital when I was she had an ectopic pregnancy. And so suddenly from my life, she was gone. That definitely created anxiety in her life. And I would say anxiety runs my family, but nobody that is in my immediate family had it to the extent that I did. So I think sort of that experience of her going away, and I think it happened before I had words. I was so young, I didn't know what was happening, but I sensed I sensed that something was really wrong. I picked it up even before I had language. And I think that had a big impact on me, but I was already wired to be very anxious. I already was definitely anxiety prone. And that's where I think the family piece surely comes in, because I have lots of family members who are prone to anxiety. But I like to just, rather than look at, oh, this is just my cross to bear in this lifetime, or my burden to bear. Right. I'm so grateful for it, because it brought me to the Course. It brought me to look for another way, because life wasn't working for me so well. I was in a lot of pain and pretty debilitated by it. And so I'm super grateful that it opened my mind to question everything, to question my own beliefs, to question my own perceptions, and to open myself to a spiritual pathway. It brought me to spirituality. My anxiety did.
Corrine, as you talked about your feelings in the anxiety, the sensations, the body sensations, the thoughts, the high blood pressure, the pumping, all that. it took me back to some of the highest anxiety I had in my life. And I don't know if it's just that I've experienced it so often, or maybe I got involved with my big self a lot more than my smaller self, or whatever. We'll talk about that. Um, that I've kind of sort of the similar issues, similar situations, same, oh, here we are again, don't have the same reaction. But at the time, this went on for like a year and a half, where at night in the chair in the living room, I could not even relax to listen to music. And it felt so bad. And I didn't want to talk to my late wife about feeling that bad. And I think A-type personalities who seem to have the world by the tail and bust through walls, or maybe we don't know what goes on behind the door. But I've always felt like envious that they didn't have those concerns. They didn't have the anxiety. They didn't have the fear of failure or whatever it was, or not being good enough. Talk about the actual physical psychological component of anxiety, because it's debilitating.
It is, and it comes down to what you just mentioned. You know, there's our blood pressure gets higher, we get shaky and sweaty, and our heart races, and our mind. I experienced often like a tunnel vision where the anxiety became my only thing that I was aware of. It was the only thing I could focus on. I couldn't widen my attention to take in anything else. It really constricted and narrowed my field of awareness. And when we're caught in that, you know, we're really caught in a loop in our minds of just being overwhelmed with fear. It's no fun. It's no fun. It sounds like you knew it well too.
I knew it too well, you know, and in the moment too, Corinne, I think you probably agree with me. I thought it would never stop,
Mm-hmm.
and that creates what?
More fear. More fear. That creates more fear because we're afraid it's not going to stop, that we're going crazy, that we're losing our minds. And yeah, that's absolutely what happens, but it does come to an end.
It does, and there are tools, and you share these tools, and they're powerful tools. In fact, they're some of the tools I found in my life that actually have helped me. And so these tools, that's why I say these are like rocks, you know, the simplicity of the depth of what's available to you with the self-awareness, with meditation, um, and some of the tools that Corinne shares in her very powerful way in the book. These are real tools, folks. This is something that not just you can get her story, you can take a look at your story or his story or her story in the book as far as anxiety. I mean, if you've had these things, yeah, if you want to know how to hit a home run, you need to talk to somebody who's actually done it. It's not an intellectual conversation.
That's so true. And we can get so we can get very caught in the intellectual, like, oh, you know, I'm not a body. I know I'm a spiritual being, but guess what? You know, we wake up every day and we think that we are
Well,
these bodies. We have to be honest.
That's one of my concerns with younger people, with this mass exodus to well, kind of like what we're doing, the online world, where you look at the advertising, you think that they lived inside their phones, and I'm afraid some of them do, to the point where they walk across the street looking at the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Cut it out, kids. It's not safe. I don't want to hit you. So, but where did it start to turn for you? Your mom gave you a copy. Did you carry that with you to college? Did you start to, when you started looking at the path you wanted to walk? Where did it occur to you that you really started to work with it? And then how long did it take you to transpose it to who you are today, as far as doing therapy work with people and being there and counseling and all that?
That's a great question. So this was not an overnight healing for me. I started studying the course very consistently in 1997 when I was a sophomore in college, and I never put it down. But the course is very multi-layered. There's many different layers of understanding to it. So even to this day, I will open the book and read something that I underlined 10 years ago and be like, oh my gosh, I've never read that before, where clearly I have, but now I get it on a whole different level. So we progress in our understanding of the material as we practice it. And so what happened was that as I started working some of these principles, which I can talk about,
Oh, sure.
the anxiety started falling away in layers. At first, it fell away where I just found I touched those, I read those lines of truth in the course, like you talked about before, those foundational,
Yeah.
those really cornerstones of a new foundation of trust. Things like one of the first sentences in the course is, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God.
Oh, give me chills.
And
Yeah.
that's a big one. And I initially had no idea what that meant, but there was something about those words that gave me this stir of hope, this feeling of love that came up in my heart. And the recognition of sentences like that all throughout the course, some of it I had no idea what it was saying. Other pieces I was like, oh, this is so nice. That started giving me an experience of peace. And as I started actually applying what it was saying to my life, the anxiety really started falling away. Now, interestingly, in 2009, this is after over like 11 years of studying the course, I had another massive, massive anxiety episode, which was triggered by a job that I no longer belonged in, but I felt like I couldn't leave.
Oh,
And
that.
that at that point, I realized that I was actually kind of using the course more as a band-aid, and there were more ways in which I could apply its teaching. So for instance, to give you a concrete example, rather than just be anxious, run to the book, read something, feel better, and then put it down and go back to doing whatever I was doing, now I realized I needed to face my fears. I needed to turn toward my anxiety and look at my anxiety with my inner teacher, what I call in the book my inner therapist, or in A Course in Miracles, the Holy Spirit, your inner guide, whatever you like to call it. And as I found that I started actually bringing the yucky stuff, the difficult stuff, to this light of love, to this divine self that we all have, as I started looking at it and being willing to see it differently, that's when I'd find it would almost like
You know,
sun burns away fog. It would almost just start to really shift.
and that's true for a lot of spiritual folks in the world when they get the first flash of freedom, as Tom Petty put it. I'm going to be very polite about it, but they tend to run and pull out a quote and say something as a band-aid, as you said, a band-aid. I mean, we've all done it. But after a while, they just keep saying the same thing and having miserable times going on in their lives. Mm-hmm. So you're not working with, you're not doing the work, right? The self work. Mm-hmm. Proselytizing can be like that.
Absolutely.
Right. Do as I say, not as I do. Mm-hmm. There's always that. Now, as we said, incredible guest tonight, live on Love Cafe TV. Host Scott Cluthe, my guest, the one and only Corrine Zupko. Her new book, From Anxiety to Love. That's a nice travel distance there. A radical new approach for letting go of fear and finding lasting peace, from New World Library, one of my favorite imprints over the decades, working with a company that puts out really deep work. And but based on A Course in Miracles. Now there's that word, miracles. What, Corrine, for you now, and maybe how has that changed? What is a miracle?
A miracle is, there's really two ways of thinking about it, according to the Course. One way that we are most accustomed to thinking about it for those of us in the Course community is a shift in perception. A miracle is a shift in perception from fear to love. And an additional definition that's all throughout A Course in Miracles is that a miracle is an expression of love. So when we express love, when we come from that place of kindness, we're expressing what we are made of. We're expressing the truth about ourselves. So miracles can often show up as a restored sense of peace. Miracles can show up as a feeling of a renewed sense of connectedness to the universe, or an awareness that an actual felt experience that even though I think I'm a body, that I'm actually not, that there's actually something greater happening. And those experiences are what develop our trust. And in that development of trust, our anxiety falls away. So we're literally, by working miracles, by having these shifts in perception and these experiences that restore our awareness of love, we're literally transferring our trust from this world, from the world of form, into trusting divine love, into trusting, that there's something much greater than us that can be counted on and called upon and relied upon and is really there. So that transfer of trust, when we begin to make that, that's where the fears really start to fall away. So I like to say that anxiety falls away as you begin to remember your true self. As we wake up to who we truly are, which is love, anxiety cannot exist in that awareness. It just can't exist in that space.
Sometimes people have anxiety over what they're wearing because they don't know if they have the latest and the sharpest, or whether the car they're driving is the best or not, or whether the TV they have is big enough, or whether or not they married the right person, or really who they are. And a lot of that comes down to trying to, really be special. I mean, I'm special. I mean, you're special. We all want to be special. What's the problem with too much specialness with a capital S? In fact, I think that my spiritual teacher, Alice Bailey, said that glamour was the world. She said this back in the 40s, actually. I have a book on it. Glamour is a worldwide problem. I think that glamour, which can be specialness, is a bigger problem than ever. And I think she was right on. What about specialness?
Specialness is, according to the Course, why we came here into this world. It's why we entered into Earth School from the get-go, because we wanted to be special. Because if you think about it, if we're in heaven, oneness, divine love, everybody's equal, right? We're all equally special. So we want to experience being really special. So let's experiment with this playground of Earth School and see what it gets. And just thinking about nowadays with social media and Facebook, now we can all be our little, own movie stars and have our own pages and do these little things. And so that can really be used to enhance our specialness. Or if we repurpose it, if we give the purpose of our social media to our inner teacher, now it can be used to connect. Now it can be used to have this wonderful show that you have where you're teaching spirituality. We can repurpose our specialness, the things that we do to achieve specialness, we can repurpose that to instead have it be used for a divine, loving purpose.
And that's the wide world web, folks. www. There's a reason those three letters were created, and this is the web of the wide world at many levels. It's kind of funny because I'm watching, my granddaughters were over yesterday, so it was Chaos Central. Yeah. And little Emma was watching Disney. And all those kids wanted to do in that show every time was, let's make a video. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
That word didn't exist when I was your age. It did, but I didn't know what that was. But let's make a video, right? So it's a matter of also acknowledging that the march of evolution, if you will, of consciousness. The change, and to reach across the generational boundaries to support those who are maybe a little further behind the journey, that often turns out to be ahead of us on the journey because they're authentic and open and they know everybody's special. But these tools in the book, Corrine, are some powerful tools. And the one that's a lot of people trip over, and I know that I tried for years to do this. I'm going 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 to do this. Tried for years. And then when I stopped trying to do it, I started doing it. And I can't believe, where I can go with it. I'm talking about meditation. What is the piece about meditation that you would share with viewers?
If we're always asking for help from the universe, like help, 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 I need a shift, I need a miracle, help, 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 help. If we don't shush and get quiet, we're not going to receive the gifts that are there waiting for us to receive them. We have to stop. We have to pause. We have to rest in the moment. And even if we feel like our mind is moving a million times a minute, which it's going to do, we can still work with that. We can still notice our mind being that monkey mind, and we can choose to come back to an anchor, whether that anchor is our breath or sound or a mantra or just feeling love. So meditation is key, and I have meditations throughout the book, and I talk about it as a key piece of learning how to slow down and listen to our inner guidance system, because we have to slow down and tune in if we're going to connect with this higher part of our mind, our true self.
Yeah, you don't want to get to the pearly gates and say, what have you been doing for the last 80 years? I'm being anxious about what's going to happen next. Well, guess what? This is it.
Right.
What are you going to do for the next 800 years? What? What? Yeah, we can start by peeling those potatoes over there. You're in boot camp.
That's awesome.
So, tell us about some of the other tools. And tools, when I say tools, folks, I mean, digging in tools, but also tools of inspiration, points of light that are transferable.
Yeah.
So tell us about the book. Tell us about the book as far as some of the tools that you share, and you'd like people to sort of be aware of what's available in your new book.
So there's so many tools in the book. I really share, I could say, 3 basic steps that I break down into many steps, because like we said before, truth is simple, but we like to make things complicated. So my 3 simple steps are to find your willingness to see differently. So in other words, anxiety. I might be caught in thinking, I hate this, I want it to go away, it sucks. Step number 1, am I willing to see my anxiety differently? Heck yes. I'll talk about what to do if you're unwilling, because sometimes if you're honest, the answer might be no, I'm not willing to see something differently. But let's just say for ease right now, yes, I'm willing to see differently. Next step, take your willingness and give your willingness to your inner teacher, your higher mind, and say, I want the miracle instead. You want that shift. You want that love instead of the pain. So find your willingness, give your willingness to see differently over to your inner teacher, ask for the miracle. And the third step is to trust that it's done, that the moment that we ask for that shift, it's given. This is where we have to get quiet and be patient and trust that we're going to receive it when we're ready. Now, you might go through those 3 steps and be like, okay, I just did that. Nothing happened. Now what? And
wait,
come on, universe.
Latte?
I'm waiting. This is on my timer here, on my clock.
Come on now.
This is where I break it down a little bit more, because we need to look at a number of different things. We need to be radically honest. Like I said before, there might be times if we have a conflict with someone, let's say a family member, and am I willing to see this conflict differently? The answer might be no. We might not be willing because we want to be right. Darn it.
Yes. Right or alive.
I want to be right and not happy. I'd much rather be right. So, so if we can own our unwillingness, that's key to be able to look at. So that's another step, is to look at our unwillingness. I have so many other, tools and things that I offer in the book, with mind straightening mantras, words, phrases, things that we can tell ourselves. There's journal prompts. I'm such a huge fan of writing in a journal and just getting out whatever it is that's swirling around in your head. And another tool, another exercise that I have in the book is about projection. So this is another interesting thing that we do all the time.
Oh, yeah, that.
Yeah. And the example that I give in the book is that when I'm not really a cold weather person, even though I live in Jersey, I much prefer the summer. So if I'm looking outside in the winter and I see a squirrel, I might think, oh, that squirrel's got to be so cold, right? That squirrel would not wear a sweater if I knitted a sweater for the squirrel. It's fine. It's my feelings that I'm projecting onto that squirrel. So we need to start to be able to see how we do this and how often we do this when we put our stuff on other people, in order to, again, make room for shifts, to make room for space within. So that's just a quick overview of some of the many tools and techniques in the book.
If we ever could see with that higher mind, which actually you can, see the projections of other people to each other and to the world and to themselves and across the network of thoughts running, it's hard to hear anything and all the clutter. Yeah, but by pulling it in, and meditation is a great place, as you so beautifully shared, great place to pull it in and to be a receiver. We don't always have to be the transmitter.
Mhm.
In fact, the less you transmit, sometimes the more powerful your transmissions are because you're receiving a lot more love.
Agreed.
Yeah. Tell us about your group, your, Course in Miracles group. That's pretty powerful, Corinne.
Yeah. So again, my book is based on every principle of A Course in Miracles that helped me in undoing and overcoming anxiety. And I do have a weekly Course in Miracles study group that I facilitate over the phone every Sunday night at 8 p.m. You can call in through the internet. So no matter where you live, it can be free. It won't be like a toll call or anything. And we read the book, we discuss it, and we share personal examples of how the material relates. So I'm very, very dedicated to this pathway, and have a podcast and my blog and videos and that to support folks.
Wow, I'm really grateful that New World brought you to me, and that you joined me tonight. It's very inspiring. It reignites and re-inspires to be with someone like you. And thank you for carrying the torch of one of the great spiritual pathways that are available to us now, folks. I didn't say the pathway. I said one of the great ones that's really clean. I like clean. Yeah. No, I don't need all that clutter. Don't need too many Rolls Royces, or crowned thrones of gold and pearl. No, that's okay. Course in Miracles. So I want to thank you and honor your taking on in this lifetime the anxiety pill. You can have the red one or the blue one, right? And traveling down that rabbit hole so that you could emerge with this work, because it's very powerful. It's very available, folks. It's very available. Go out and get a copy. Check it out for yourself. From Anxiety to Love, a radical new approach for letting go of fear and finding lasting peace.